remember reading in that other big book this story about these guys that were practicing these principles and carrying this message. And they were in a little town called Cernan. And after the guy was talked that night, they told me of a fellow they had locked in a cave up on the side of the hill. And he said, I want to go up and see this guy. And they said, no, you don't want to see him. Man, he's a selfish, self-centered, angry, hateful individual. And we got him locked up. He said, no, I want to go see him. He said, tell me what his name is. He said, well, his name is Legions, for he is many. Many defects of character. He said, well, I'm going to go up there and talk to him. So he went up and talked to him a little bit, cut loose the chains of resentment and fear and guilt, shame, and remorse, and set him free. He wrote a little strip for us right here. And the guy asked him, he said, can I go with you and do what you do? And he said, no, Legions. He said, I want you to stay here and tell people what happened to you. I think it's called Pass It On.
Well, hello, friends of Bill W. and other friends. You have landed on Sober Speak. My name is John M. I am an alcoholic, and we are glad you are all here, especially newcomers. Newcomers, that is, both to recovery as a whole and newcomers to this podcast. Sober Speak is a podcast about recovery centered around the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. My job here on Sober Speak is simple. My job is to provide a platform to the amazing stories of recovery all around us. Consider Sober Speak, if you will, your meeting between meetings. Please remember, we do not speak for AA or any 12-step community. We represent only ourselves. We are here to share our experience, strength, and hope with those who wish to come along for the ride. Take what you want and leave the rest at the curb for the trash man to pick up. Greetings from Studio AA, deep in the heart of Texas. That was the voice of Joe and Charlie that you heard at the beginning of this here episode number 426. My goodness, can you believe it? Or my goodness, can you believe it? Anyway, you're going to hear so much more from Joe and Charlie in just a second on this here part 10 of Joe and Charlie. But first things first, this episode is made possible by Theo, Teresa, Anthony, David, and Kate. And so you ponder, you think about that, and you say, what exactly did Theo and Teresa and Anthony and David and Kate do? Well, they went by our humble little website, which the lovely Mrs. M keeps up, and they clicked on the little donation tab at the top of the screen, and they made a contribution. So thank you so much, Theo, Teresa, Anthony, David, and Kate. This here episode is coming right out to you'uns. So I prayed before I started here, and I always do that, but I changed it up a little bit this time. I've told you this before, but many times I'm kind of picturing people and what they are doing and how they may be listening to this podcast and that they get to hear what they need to hear. This time I prayed that this episode, and hopefully all the other episodes as well, get out to the people that need to hear it. I'm not so much interested in the numbers, even though I do look at the numbers. I'm interested in that segment of people that need to hear this, and possibly it could alter the trajectory of their life. Possibly it could alter their perception of just that day. I hope it gets out to the people that need to hear this podcast, this episode. And as I'm recording this, so I'm getting a little ahead of the game. You're going to be hearing this probably a couple of weeks out from now. I don't even know exactly when it is, but right now it is the day before Thanksgiving in the United States of America. And the lovely Mrs. M, I don't know exactly what she is cooking up in there, but I know it's a lot of different items. She's very good at it. I just have to show up and I clean. I'm not lazy about it or anything like that. But they don't. When I say they, her and her sister and a mom and whoever else is in there, for the most part, don't want me in there because I'm just gonna slow things down. So I just let them do their deal. And I was just at a meeting earlier today, and everyone was reflecting on Thanksgiving and the holidays and all those sorts of things. And so for me, I was thinking about this holiday, Thanksgiving, and I was always that kid when I was growing up, who had my mom she just wasn't all the way there. Not her fault. It's just she had some mental illness and some other things going on. And I was always that kid, and I was an only child, and I was always that kid that people were, trying to invite over to make sure that I was kind of taken care of, so to speak, and that I had something to do. My mom was not real big into the holidays or anything like that, and that really even continued on even to my first 10 years of sobriety. It's just like I never had anywhere to land and never had any family. And I know there's a lot of people that are listening to this out there right now that are in that same situation. And, all I can share is my experience. It's just weird how this has turned around. I never even wanted to have kids just because my experience with seeing how kids were raised did not look like how I thought things should look. And I didn't want to subject any children to that, nor did I have the confidence that I could be a good father. But all that to say, this house, our house, me and the lovely Mrs. M, is where people come to settle in. This is where the relatives are coming. This is where hopefully they feel safe and they feel like it's a good, safe place to land, and they don't have to worry about a lot of drama or anything like that. And I say that because this is a compliment, if you will, to Alcoholics Anonymous and what AA has done for my life and the lovely Mrs. M and our kids. Now, I don't want to make it sound like it's all wonderful all the time. We have our stressors and stuff like that, but generally speaking, on Thanksgiving, it's been it's a time where we will just, I'll go to a meeting and then I'll come back and then we'll eat and then I'll help clean up and everybody helps clean up. And then I watch the Dallas Cowboy game, and that's just usually how it goes. And I'm just grateful that I'm not in a place to where I have to worry about where I'm going to end up on Thanksgiving. Now, you never know, that time may come again, right? But for right now, for today, it's okay. And I wasn't planning on sharing all of that, but apparently I got started and I just did. I guess that's what I was supposed to say today. So anyway, on to the episode of the week. This is Joe and Charlie part 10. Now, I've been playing all the various episodes. This is the last episode of The Big Book Comes Alive, Joe and Charlie, at least the particular series that I found and have been publishing. And this is kind of a special request. I wanted to finish this out to Mr. Dylan. He wrote in one time and said he didn't have any other way to consume the Joe and Charlie tape, so I wanted to make sure that we finish this out. But Dylan, we're going to let some other folks listen in as well, okay? And this is The Big Book Comes Alive. Just in case you're not familiar with Joe and Charlie, these are two men credited with making the Big Book of AA more accessible to many who may have found the language archaic or just downright confusing. So, get your highlighters out, your pens, your pencils. Maybe you have a tablet or phone that you take you take notes on, however it is. But I could tell you, going through this series brought back tons of memories for me, because if you look in my big book, my original one, there's notes all over it, and notes and highlighting. Most of the notes and highlighting came from this series, The Big Book Comes Alive with Joe and Charlie. Keep in mind there are hard stops, hard beginnings, but overall the audio is pretty good. Joe and Charlie, for those of you who don't know, once again, they were a team of two men. They died in 2007 and 2011, respectively. They met in 1973. They spent 3 decades spreading their interpretation of the Big Book all throughout the world. I'm sure they never thought that some Yahoo like myself would be introducing one of their tapes and talking about them at length, and then it would be spread all throughout the world via this thing we call the internet. They had no idea. Anyway, God bless y'all. We will have plenty listener feedback at the end of this episode. Enjoy Joe and Charlie part 10 for the last time. By the way, if you want the other, all the past episodes, you can look back through our other episodes. If you don't know exactly how to search our episodes, write me, John, John, at soberspeak.com, and I will fill you in on how to do that. Okay? All right. Enjoy Joe and Charlie, and we will have plenty listener feedback at the end of this episode. Enjoy.
So we made a deal. 41st Street in Tulsa is kind of the halfway between north and south. And Phyllis could have the south half of 41st Street, 41st and south, and I get 41st and north. And we would meet at home from time to time and visit. And do our drinking. She does hers there, and I do mine over here. Got a good deal. And that went on for a long time, and I had a little mobile home up on a lake west of our city, and one night Gail and Phyllis showed up there at 3 o'clock in the morning and embarrassed me in front of my girlfriend and stuff. And that was another situation. Just kill me. Just kill me to have that situation. How are you going to make amends to a little old girl for that? What are you going to say? A remorseful mumbling that I'm sorry, is that going to do it? No. She'd heard that from us before. But she got married when she was about 17 years old and began to have her children. And Phyllis and I are getting sober now and early in our sobriety. And what we did was that we were there every time she had a child. We were at the hospital. We lived sober and did the right thing. See, I wasn't a very good father, but I'm a damn good grandfather, I can tell you that. And I'm that, and Phyllis is a great grandmother. And after 2 or 3 years of this, they moved off to Ohio. Phyllis and I talked it over, and we didn't mind Gail and Jim moving, but they took our grandkids with them. And up there, after a year or two up there, something happened to her sister-in-law, who was young, 32 years old, and died and left 3 kids to her husband. And Gail called us one night, and she said, "Papa?" I said, "Yeah." She told me this story. She said, "But something was to happen to Jim and I. Would you and Mom take the kids?" That's when I knew it was okay with us. A remorseful mumbling that I'm sorry won't cut it. But living sober, doing the right thing, being there, that will do it. The action is a whole lot more better than words. And that happened with us. And today we have a good relationship together. They're back in Tulsa now. But after you've done all you can do to make amends, there comes a day when you say, "I'm not making any more amends." So you see, we'll make each other pay forever if we'll pay. Someday, you quit making amends. You quit feeling that guilt, shame, remorse, because we'll put it on each other and make each other feel bad forever. Someday you say, "Hey, I'm not paying no more." That's it. Through.
Okay. We've read way back in the book, the beginning of step 4. It said we're spiritually ill, mentally ill, and physically ill. And that's referring to the 3 dimensions of life. All human beings are born to live in 3 dimensions. We have the dimension of the Spirit. And if God dwells within each of us, and that means we're going to have to live with God whether we like it or not, it's beside the point. The only question is, do we live there in harmony or disharmony? I don't know of any group of people in the world that ever got in more disharmony with God than we alcoholics have. We have also what they call the mental dimension. We all have a mind, and we're going to have to live with our mind. Whether we like it or not is beside the point. We don't have any other choice. The only question is, do we live there in harmony or disharmony? I don't know of any group of people that ever got in more disharmony in their own minds than we alcoholics have. We also have what they call the physical dimension. Now, for years I thought that dealt with my body only. But the physical dimension is the world and everything in it. The physical dimension is not just my body, but your body, my wife's body, my children's body, my job, my car, my bird dogs, my everything. And we don't have any place to live except here on earth. Whether we like it or not is beside the point. The only question is, do we live here on earth in harmony or disharmony? I don't know of any group of people in the world that ever got in more disharmony in the physical dimension than we alcoholics did. We were sick spiritually, mentally, and physically. There's also a statement in the big book which talks about this program is a design for living that really works. And one day we got to looking at that design for living, comparing it to the 3 dimensions of life. And it looks to us as though the first 9 steps are designed to put us back together as God intended for us to be in the first place. Through steps 1, 2, and 3, we get right with God. Because we were powerless, we saw the need for the power, and we made a decision to go after that power. And that put us in the right relationship. God is going to be the director. He's the father, we're the children. He's the employee, we're the employee. First time we've had that relationship with God. For most of us, the first time in our life. Now that removed just enough self-will to let us start looking into our own minds and see what was going to block us off from carrying out this decision that we made in step 3. And through 4, 5, 6, and 7, we found all those character defects that create our problems for us. Talked about them to another human being. Began to work on them in 6 and 7. We began to get well in the mental dimension through steps 4, 5, 6, and 7. That removed just enough self-will to let us start reaching out to our fellow man. And through steps 8 and 9, we got right with the world and everybody in it. And we are no longer sick people. If you're right with God in 1, 2, and 3, if you're right with yourself in 4, 5, 6, and 7, if you're right with your fellow man in steps 8 and 9, then you have been put back together the way God intended for you to live in the first place. A design for living. It really works. And if you're right with God and right with yourself and right with your fellow man, you're probably going to feel pretty good. And I don't think it's by accident the very next thing in the big book, at the bottom of page 83, happens to be the promises that we're always reading. Let's take a look at them for just a moment. If we're painstaking about this phase of our development, we will be amazed before we're halfway through. We're going to know a new freedom and a new happiness. We will not regret the past nor wish to shut the door on it. We will comprehend the word serenity and we will know peace. No matter how far down the scale we have gone, we can see how our experience will benefit others. That feeling of uselessness and self-pity will disappear. We will lose interest in selfish things and gain interest in our fellows. Self-seeking will slip away. Our whole attitude and outlook upon life will change. Fear of people and of economic insecurity will leave us. We will intuitively know how to handle situations that used to baffle us. We will suddenly realize that God is doing for us what we cannot do for ourselves. Are these extravagant promises? We think not. They're being fulfilled among us sometimes quickly, spiritual experience, sometimes slowly, spiritual awakening. They will always materialize if we work for them. Now I'm going to read them again. I'll read them the second time for two reasons. Number one, I love the way I read them. Number two, I'm going to add some words to them. And the words I'm going to add to them refer to a time when I was young and when I could drink alcohol and be Fred Astaire on the dance floor and the world's greatest lover in the back seat of a 36 Chevrolet. This is the way alcohol used to make me feel before it turned against me and literally destroyed me. Whenever I took a drink of alcohol, I knew a new freedom, a new happiness. Whenever I took a drink of alcohol, I did not regret the past or wish to shut the door on it. Whenever I took a drink of alcohol, I would comprehend the word serenity and I'd know peace. Whenever I took a drink of alcohol, no matter how far down the scale I'd gone, I could see how my experience would benefit others. Whenever I took a drink of alcohol, that feeling of uselessness and self-pity would disappear. Whenever I took a drink of alcohol, I would lose interest in selfish things and gain interest in my fellows. Whenever I took a drink of alcohol, self-seeking would slip away. Whenever I took a drink of alcohol, my whole attitude and outlook upon life would change. Whenever I took a drink of alcohol, fear of people and of economic insecurity would leave me. Whenever I took a drink of alcohol, I would intuitively know how to handle situations which used to baffle me. Whenever I took a drink of alcohol, I would suddenly realize that alcohol was doing for me what I could not do for myself. Now think about that for a minute. My God, no wonder I became obsessed with the idea of drinking alcohol. When you find something that will do this for you, over and over and over and over again, you're going to become absolutely obsessed with the idea of using it. And for several years, alcohol was my friend. So for several years, alcohol allowed me to function in society. When I look back at it now, I don't believe I could have functioned in society without alcohol or something to give me these kind of feelings. But then one day, my friend alcohol turned against me. And all the things I was afraid would happen to me now began to happen because of the alcohol. And I became a very, very confused individual. Not knowing I was alcoholic. Not knowing I would never be able to recapture these things from alcohol. I spent the last 5 or 6 years of my drinking desperately trying to recapture these things. And alcohol almost destroyed me. And I came to AA, and you handed me a book called Alcoholics Anonymous. And I began to apply that program in that book in my life. And one day I woke up with these promises in my mind. And they don't deal with the body, they're all in my mind. I woke up with these promises in my mind. And I said to myself, you know, These first 9 steps have given me everything good that alcohol used to give me. That's why I don't drink. If I hadn't found them here, I'd still be looking for them. I'd be dead somewhere. But you see, I don't need to drink because the first 9 steps through these promises have given me everything good that alcohol ever gave me before. That's the miracle of Alcoholics Anonymous. And with that thought came another thought. So far, the first 9 steps have never turned against me as alcohol did. I've never been placed in jail because of the first 9 steps. No woman has ever drugged me through a divorce court because of the first 9 steps. I've never had the hell beat out of me because of the first 9 steps. Damn near did a time or two, but never really because of the first 9 steps. You see, that's the miracle of Alcoholics Anonymous. And if you look at them, they all deal with the mind. None deal with the body. Now, we come here restless, irritable, and discontented. We come here filled with shame, fear, guilt, and remorse. We come here very selfish, dishonest, self-seeking, frightened, and inconsiderate people. We come here as very angry individuals. Now, if we've gone from that state of mind to the state of mind called out in these promises, then surely we have undergone a great change in our personality. A personality change sufficient to recover from alcoholism. Surely we've had a spiritual experience or a spiritual awakening right here. Now, if that's true, then what is the purpose of the last 3 steps? And a lot of people will tell us they are maintenance steps. Well, I'll agree that they're going to help us stay sober. But the word maintenance itself is a misnomer. To maintain something means to keep it as is. And another law in our universe applies here that says nothing in our universe ever stays as is. Everything in our universe is in a constant state of change. It's either growing or it's dying. It's progressing or it's regressing. You watch a beautiful tree grow, and it grows and grows and grows, and every day it gets more beautiful. Till one day it quits growing. And the day it quits growing, it begins to die. And it reverts back to where it came from. The human body is one of the most miraculous things that God has ever produced. And it grows and grows and grows till it gets to be about 19 years old. And then it quits growing. And the day it quits growing, it begins to die. And eventually reverts back to where it came from. Everything that's true in the material world is also true in the mental world, the emotional world, and all areas of life. If I tried to stop here and maintain these promises in my life and grow no further, then after a while I start slipping back. Next thing you know, I start having trouble with people. Next thing you know, I start having trouble with me up here. Next thing you know, I'm blocked off from God. And next thing you know, I'm drunk all over again. I am convinced in my mind this is what happens to people who have had a good program and they're 20 and 25 and 30 years sober, and they quit coming to AA and they quit growing. And they end up getting drunk out there too. We see it happen to people all the time who are good members of AA. They simply quit growing. You can't coast uphill. You can only coast downhill. Let's look at the last 3 steps for just a few minutes. And let's see if we can't see the growth factor rather than the maintenance factor.
See, one thing we did as a fellowship is we took all the steps out of the book, put them on these little cards, put them on the wall. And I like them on these little cards and on the wall. There's nothing wrong with that. The only thing is that we left the instructions on how to work the steps in the book. People come into AA and they try to take the steps off these cards or off the wall and miss the whole point. And if you're trying to take the steps off the wall and come to step 10, It would say continue to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. It looked like if you were wrong and you promptly admitted it, you were doing the intent of step 10. Somehow or other, we got the idea that step 10 is to be done at night while in bed. Well, I've talked this over a great deal with Charlie, and I don't get in trouble at night while in bed. The nighttime portion of the step's over in step 11 anyhow. It's not even in step 10. So let's look at the growth factor in step 10. So this thought brings us to step 10, which suggests that we continue to take personal inventory and continue to set right any new mistakes as we go along. We vigorously commenced this way of living as we cleaned up the past. We have entered the world of the Spirit.
We've had a spiritual experience or a spiritual awakening.
Our next function is to grow.
To grow, not maintain, not stay where we are, but to grow.
In understanding and in effectiveness. Now, this is not an overnight matter. It should continue for our lifetime. Continue to watch for selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear.
What step did we use to do that in the first place? Anybody remember? Step 4, okay.
When these crop up, we ask God at once to remove them.
What steps did we use there?
6 and 7.
6 and 7, okay.
We discuss them with someone immediately.
What step was that? 5.
And make amends quickly if we've harmed anyone.
What steps did we use there? 8 and 9.
Then we resolutely turn our thoughts to someone we can help. Love and tolerance of others is our code.
You know, it looks to me like if we do step 10 the way the big book says, we're going to be doing steps 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 on a daily basis for the rest of our life. I would defy anybody in this room to do steps 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 on a daily basis and stay the way you are. You absolutely cannot do that. See, I've got that little inventory sheet up here in my head. I can see it just as plain as day. And if I get screwed up about 9 o'clock in the morning, it doesn't make any sense for me to wait till I go to bed at night to do something about it. Because if I'm screwed up at 9 o'clock, I've cussed 2 or 3 people out by 11 o'clock. 2 or 3's cussed me out by 2 o'clock. By nighttime, I'm a basket case, and I've wasted another day. What I have finally learned to do, it's taken a long time to do it, but I finally learned that if I get screwed up about 9 o'clock in the morning, to stop. Get off in the corner by myself. Okay, Charlie, who are you mad at? What did they do to you? Which part of self is affected? What did you do, if anything, to set it in motion? Which character defect has come back to the surface? I can't get really upset unless that old selfish, dishonest, self-seeking, frightened, or inconsiderate human being has come back to the surface. I can spot it just like that. I turn to God and I say, okay, God, you know I don't want to be this way. Please take this dishonesty away from me, or this inconsideration, whatever it is. Please take this away from me. Discuss it with someone as soon as I can. He says immediately. Sometimes we can't do it immediately. As soon as I can. Preferably my sponsor, if I can do so. And then I make amends quickly if I've harmed anyone. 15, 20, 30 minutes, the whole thing is gone. And the rest of the day is okay. I've wasted all the time I want to waste in anger and resentment and fear and that kind of crap. I don't feel good when I'm that way. It blocks me off from God and my fellow human beings. It makes me sick. And I don't have to feel that way anymore. Now, you absolutely cannot do step 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 over and over and over again and stay the way you are. You just can't do that. Twice in the big book, Bill talks about a fourth dimension of existence. Once in his story, once in chapter 2. Now, the normal 3 are the spiritual, the mental, and the physical. And we got right and well in all 3 of those through the first 9 steps. But there's another dimension of existence, far, far beyond the normal three, that we never dreamed existed. And you can't explain it, and you can't understand it. You can only grow into it. And that's what this step is for. And as our relationship with God gets better and better, as our relationship with ourselves gets better and better, as our relationship with our fellow man gets better and better, then we move into an entirely different dimension of living. And thank God there's no end to it. Because you see, if there was an end to it, I would get bored. And I would quit doing it, and I would be in trouble. But it's fascinating for me today to see just how far we can grow in this thing. Just how much better our relationship can become with God and ourselves and our fellow human being. A very definite growth step to move us into another dimension of living. Now, this is another reason you don't need to be too concerned about doing a perfect job in step 4. Because you're going to be doing this inventory thing the rest of your life. See? So do the best you can in 4 and get on with the rest of the program, and then you'll come to step 10. And we'll be re-inventorying from now on. A definite growth step, Joe.
Once we do this for a while, we get some more promises. And our book says, and we've ceased fighting anything or anyone, even alcohol. For by this time, sanity will have returned. Remember it said on step 2 that we came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity? Well, we get our sanity back on page 84. Now we're restored to sanity. And once we have our sanity back, it says we will seldom be interested in liquor. If tempted, we recoil from it as from a hot flame. We react sanely and normally, and we find this has happened automatically. We will see that our new attitude toward liquor has been given us without any thought or effort on our part. It just comes. That's the miracle of it. We're not fighting it, and neither are we avoiding temptation. We feel as though we've been placed in a position of neutrality, safe and protected. We're not even sworn off. Instead, the problem has been removed. It does not exist for us. We're neither cocky nor are we afraid. That is our experience. That's how we relax, so long as we keep in fit spiritual condition. And remember back on page 45, it said the main object of this book was to enable me to find a power greater than myself, which would solve my problem. Didn't say would help me solve my problem. It said would solve my problem. Well, somewhere between page 45 and 85, there's the steps. I worked the steps. And one day I looked up and looked around and said, what happened to that great obsession that I used to have to drink? It was gone. Just gone. That's the miracle of it. Those times prior to AA, I had to forced sobriety. And I don't know about you, but sometimes I'd be sober and be thumbing through a magazine, and I'd see a picture of a bottle of whiskey in there. Just a picture. Water running down the sides, cold. My mouth would water. Phyllis said I slobbered a lot. Just looking at a picture. That's the kind of obsession to drink that I had. And what happened? It just went away. See, God removed that from me, evidently. I'm not tough like some people who can do it a day at a time and stay sober one day at a time. And God had to remove the obsession to drink from me in order for me to stay sober. I'm just not that tough. Now it says, now it's easy to let up on a spiritual program of action and rest on our laurels. You know, by this time, things are pretty good. By the time you get around to this part of the program, things are good. If you're lucky, you may be back home. If you're real lucky, the dog's not biting you anymore. If you're really, really lucky, you may be back in the bedroom. You see? Things are pretty good. Going to work regularly, getting a full paycheck at the end of the week, making more money, doing good. Probably a lot of people move into a new house, buy new furniture, buy a new car, all on credit, by the way. And we find ourselves, things begin to kind of compete for our sobriety. We have to work more overtime to pay for them, you know, work nights and weekends. We kind of get too busy to go to AA. We rest on our laurels. Charlie said a while ago, we can only coast downhill. If we're not careful, those things will compete for our sobriety, and they will get your sobriety too. If you're too busy to go to AA, you're just too busy. That's all I can tell you. We're headed for trouble if we do. For alcohol is a subtle foe. We're not cured of alcoholism. What we really have is a daily reprieve contingent on the maintenance of our spiritual condition.
There's the word maintenance. One day at a time. We can't maintain forever, but we can do it one day at a time.
Every day is a day when we must carry the vision of God's will into all of our activities. How can I best serve Thee? Thy will, not mine, be done. These are thoughts which must go with us constantly. We can exercise our willpower along this line all we wish. It's the proper use of the will. We get our willpower back on page 85. We've been saying all weekend that willpower is no avail to us. God never gave us anything that was bad. He gave us willpower for a purpose. We get our sanity back on page 84 and our willpower back on page 85. Wouldn't it be awful to have our willpower and no sanity the way it was and know what to do with it? And again it says, how can I best serve Thee? Thy will, not mine, be done. These are thoughts which must go with us constantly. We can exercise our willpower along this line all we wish. It's the proper use of the will. God gave us willpower for a reason, and that's it right there. It's the proper use of the will. Only thing is I misused the willpower and didn't know that.
Much has already been said about receiving strength, inspiration, and direction, not suggestion, from Him who has all knowledge and power. If we've carefully followed directions, not suggestions, we've begun to sense the flow of His Spirit into us. To some extent, we've become God conscious. We've begun to develop this vital sixth sense. But we must go further, and that means more action. Now here we're talking about God consciousness as being a vital sixth sense of direction. You know, everything I've learned on a conscious level, I've learned through 5 senses of direction. I can see, I can smell, I can taste, I can hear, and I can touch. Those are the 5 senses of direction. And about everything we learn on a conscious level, we learn through one of those 5 senses. Now you can take everything I know, and everything Joe knows, and everything you guys know, and everything every human being on earth knows, and add it all together, and it's just a tiny, tiny speck of information compared to the knowledge of the universe. Now, if God has all knowledge and all power, and I'm convinced He does because my book says so, if God dwells within each of us, I'm convinced He does, our book says so, then that means you and I have within ourselves all the knowledge and all the power that we can ever need to handle any conceivable situation which might come up in the future, provided we know how to tap into that knowledge and that power. The 6th sense of direction, or God consciousness. It's been known for thousands of years how you do this. You do it through prayer and meditation. Most of us, when we come to AA, we're absolutely bankrupt in those areas. I knew nothing about meditation. Oh, I had read in places where it might be lying down and listening to soft music, where it might be chanting certain words over and over, where it might be clearing your mind of all thought. And I don't know about you, but I know about me. I've never been able to clear my mind of all thought. I get up in the morning, that sucker turns on and it runs all day. I've never been able to stop it. I knew nothing about meditation at all. And even being raised in church, I knew very little about prayer. When I got to AA, I had 2 prayers. One of them went like this. Now lay me down to sleep, I pray the Lord my soul to keep. And if I die before I wake, I pray the Lord my soul to take. I don't even like that prayer anymore. It's dealing with death, and I'm not into that at all. The other one I used, and I'm sure some of you used it too, went like this. God, if you'll get me out of this damn mess, I swear I'll never do this again. Now, it would seem to be an impossibility for me to be able to develop a life of prayer and meditation. Thank God Bill was a real alcoholic. Because Bill Wilson didn't know anything about prayer and meditation either. And thank God he didn't. Most people that are really knowledgeable in those areas, when they write on them, they write so far over my head that I can't understand them. Bill couldn't do that. So rather than try to tell us what prayer and meditation is, he was forced to give us a few little suggestions that if we will follow those suggestions, each of us will develop our own life of prayer and meditation. And it'll be good enough that nothing or nobody can improve on it. Mine may not be exactly like yours, and yours may not be exactly like Joe's. But we'll develop our own life of prayer and meditation where we can begin to tap in to that sixth sense of direction. Bottom of page 85, he said, Step 11 suggests prayer and meditation. We shouldn't be shy on this matter of prayer. Better men than we are using it constantly. It works if we have the proper attitude and work at it. It would be easy to be vague about this matter. He's saying, I wish I didn't have to write on this. Yet we believe we can make some definite and valuable suggestions. Now he's going to tell us what we need to do when we go to bed at night. Here's the night time. It's in step 11. I know it's in 10 and the 12 and 12, but it's in 11 in the big book. He's going to tell us what to do upon awakening. He's going to tell us what to do when we face indecision. He's going to tell us how to pray. He's going to tell us what to do when we are agitated or doubtful. And if we will follow each one of these little suggestions, then each one of us will begin to develop our own life of prayer and meditation. Let's see what we do when we go to bed at night. And now look carefully. And in this first paragraph on 86, you're going to see steps 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Once again.
He said, when we retire at night, we constructively review our day. Were we resentful, selfish, dishonest, or afraid?
There's step 4.
Do we owe an apology?
There's 8 and 9.
Have we kept something to ourselves which we should be discussed with another person at
There's
once?
5.
Were we kind and loving toward all? What could we have done better? Maybe that's column 4. We were thinking of ourselves most of the time, column 5. Or were we thinking of what we should do for others, of what we could pack into the stream of life? But we must be careful not to drift into worry, remorse, or morbid reflection, for that would diminish our usefulness to others. After making our review, we ask God's forgiveness and inquire what corrective measures should be taken.
And there's step 6 and 7 again. Mm-hmm. So really, the nighttime thing when we go to bed is a repracticing of steps 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. It's impossible to do 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 and stay the way you are. We made up a little inventory sheet that you might want to use just as an example. Basically, you could use anything you want. But on one side of that sheet, we put the personality characteristics of a self-willed person. We took the basic character defects out of the big book: selfish and self-seeking, dishonest, frightened, inconsideration. Went to the 12 and 12, picked up everything we could find there. And they're all offshoots of the top 4, by the way. On the opposite side, we put the personality characteristics of God's will. Tried to find the opposite and put it on the right side. Now, all we're trying to do is get from the left-hand side of the sheet to the right-hand side of the sheet. It only takes just a few minutes to run down through this thing in the evening and see where we've been that day. I've never yet found myself on either side of the sheet completely. I find that I change these check marks from time to time. But what I do find is I'm gradually checking more on the right than I am on the left. This shows me what I need to continue to work on. And as I continue to work on those things, it gets better and better and better and better. Now, I know one thing for sure. I am going to inventory. I am going to inventory. I've got one or two choices. I can wait until I'm so sick and so fouled up that I'm almost drunk and start trying to dig myself out from under that mess with the possibility of getting drunk. Or I can take a few minutes each day and keep myself in fit spiritual condition without that possibility of getting drunk. And I find that it takes less time to do it on a daily basis than it does to wait till I'm almost drunk and then start doing it. A very definite and valuable suggestion. There was a philosopher called Carl Sandburg. And Mr. Sandburg said, when a society fails, there's always one thing present. And that is that they forgot where they came from. And he said when they forget where they came from, they forget where they're going, and they get lost out there somewhere. If you and I fail, it'll be because we forget where we came from. And if we forget where we came from, we're going to get lost out there too. And we're going to end up drunk as sure as anything. I think this is one of the best suggestions in the book. 5 or 10 minutes, a little daily inventory thing in the evening before we go to bed. Now then, in the morning, on awakening. Now, he didn't say after we get up and have a cup of coffee. He didn't say after we're in the car driving to work. He said on awakening. I think that means just as soon as we wake up. Let us think about the 24 hours ahead. We consider our plans for the day. Before we begin, we ask God to direct our thinking, especially asking that it be divorced from self-pity, dishonest, or self-seeking motives. Under these conditions, we can employ our mental faculties with assurance. For after all, God gave us brains to use. Our thought life will be placed on a much higher plane when our thinking is cleared of wrong motives. Most of us jump out of bed. First thing we do is go to the bathroom. I had a guy tell me first thing he did was get on his treadmill. And I said, man, you got a better bladder than I do. I go to the bathroom. We go to the bathroom, we relieve the body, and we go to the kitchen. And we get a cup of coffee and maybe a little food, and we feed the body. And after we fed the body, we go back to the bathroom, and you ladies fix your hair and your face, and we men do whatever we do, shave or whatever, taking care of the body. After we get the head taken care of, we go to the closet, and we pick out the clothes that we're going to wear that day. And we spend a lot of time on clothes. They've got to match. Everything just got to be perfect. And we clothe the body. We get ready to leave the house. If we've got a cat or a dog, we feed the cat and dog before we leave. And we go out the door and we lock the door, because we want to be sure nobody gets our material junk away from us while we're gone. We go out to the car and we walk around the car and make sure the tires have all got air in them. We get in the car and sit down and turn on the switch and check the fuel level. And we start the car and we take off down the road. Now, we did all of those things that morning to take care of our body and all of our material stuff. What do we do about our mind? Well, the mind's going to run the whole show all day long. Body doesn't run it, the mind runs it. If you and I spent 1/10 of the time on our minds as we spend on our bodies, my God, there's no telling what we could become. But you see, most of us won't do that. Bill suggests let's take just a few minutes in the morning early before we ever get out of bed. And let's feed the mind a little bit. Let's check the air and the water in the mind before we ever get up and start the day and taking care of our body. Very definite, valuable suggestion. In thinking about our day, we may face indecision. We may not be able to determine which course to take. Here we ask God for inspiration, intuitive thought, or a decision. We relax and take it easy. We don't struggle. We're often surprised how the right answers come after we've tried this for a while. Now, used to, when I faced indecision, I'd be struggling with something up here and couldn't determine the answer or what to do. And my little thing up here, I've just got a little bitty computer up here. And it's old and it's wore out and it's got software in it that's not much good. And I'll struggle with it and all of a sudden it'll pop out on this side. And it'll say, we don't have the answer to that. And I grab it and I come in here, I stick it back in again. And it runs in there and struggles a little bit and says, we don't have the answer, and pops out the other side. And I grab it and stick it in there again. And finally it says tilt. And it's just frustration, you know. The book says, let's quit doing that. They said, if we face indecision, let's ask God for the right thought or action. Let's ask God for the intuitive thought. Realizing we don't know the answer. If I knew the answer, I wouldn't be struggling with it. So I asked God for the answer. And then it said, let's relax and take it easy. I don't think it means I lay down. I think it means I need to get my mind off of that subject. I've asked God for the answer, and if I'm struggling with it, God can't answer. Now, how do I get my mind off of that subject? Well, I go start mowing the grass, painting the house, doing the dishes, doing something worthwhile. And 30 minutes or an hour or 2 or 3 later, my mind goes back to that subject. There's information there I didn't have before. It said, why don't you call Joe and see what Joe thinks? I didn't think about that before. And I called Joe and explained the situation. I said, what do you think about this? And Joe's got the answer for me. You know, when I first started doing this, I used to say, my, wasn't it lucky I called Joe? An occasional thought or inspiration comes in. I have finally learned to do one of the hardest things I've ever done. I have finally learned to listen to people. Used to, I couldn't hear what you're saying because I'm waiting for you to shut up so I can say what I want to say. I never could hear you before. But today I've learned that God answers these things for me through other people. He very seldom speaks to me direct. I know he does to some people, but he doesn't to me very often. But he speaks to me through other people. And maybe I'm standing in a supermarket checkout line. 2 little ladies standing in front of me checking out. And they're talking, and I happen to tune into their conversation. And you know, they're talking about what I was struggling with yesterday. They've got the answer for me. If I just learn to listen to people. And he doesn't use learned people. He uses ordinary people. And I've tried to learn to listen to everybody, not just the hot shots, but everybody that I come in contact with. It's amazing what this thing will do. Page 87 tells you about this. What used to be the hunch or the occasional inspiration gradually becomes a working part of the mind. We intuitively know how to handle situations that used to baffle us. being still experienced and having just inexperienced and having just made conscious contact with God, it's not probable that we're going to be inspired at all times. We might pay for this presumption in all sorts of absurd actions and ideas. Nevertheless, we find that our thinking will, as time passes, be more and more on the plane of inspiration. We come to rely upon it. Practice, 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 practice. And these things get to be a habit. It really does work. Now he tells us how to pray.
Communication is the beginning of all understanding, isn't it? Communication is the beginning of all understanding. To give you, for instance, when we started here last night, Friday night, we didn't know each other very well, did we? But we've been communicating, talking and listening. And we know each other better today than we did Friday night. Talking and listening. Communication. Now, if that would work with you and I, wouldn't that work with God? Talking and listening. Do a lot more listening than talking. You see, and communication is the beginning of all understanding. Page 87 says we usually conclude the period of meditation with a prayer. That we be shown all through the day what our next step is to be. That we be given whatever we need to take care of such problems. We ask especially for freedom from self-will. And we're careful to make no request for ourselves only. We may ask for ourselves, however, if others will be helped. We're careful never to pray for our own selfish ends. Many of us have wasted a lot of time doing that, and it doesn't work. You can easily see why. I used to pray, God give me this, and God get me a new car, and God get me a new house. God help me make more money. And if there's something I forgot to ask you for, well, give me that also. Give me. See, and those are very selfish prayers. You know why that won't work. Praying only for the knowledge of His will for me, the power to carry that out. That's all I really need to know. Praying only for the knowledge of His will for me and the power to carry that out. See, if the circumstances warrant, we ask our wives. Several years ago, Phyllis there was sitting in her recliner, and I was sitting in mine, and pretty soon she asked me, she said, honey, I said, I don't have time for that this morning. You know how they are. She said, no, you old silly thing, what I want you to do is read this little meditation book to me and explain it to me. I said, well, I can do that. So I read it to her and explained it to her a lot more than she wanted to know. And the next day was the same thing. We discussed it. So that began a little thing for us that we do time to time as we talk and listen to each other and do some meditation. I've heard all my life that the people that pray together stay together.
How long has it been since you and Phyllis have had a divorce?
It's 29 years, honey.
29 years.
More than that? How long? Oh. It's 31. Well, thank you. I'm glad to know that. But it's been a while. So that's good.
That tickles the hell out of me.
Oh, well, anyhow, people that pray together stay together 31 years, okay? If our circumstances, well, we ask our wives or friends to join us in morning meditation. If we belong to a religious denomination which requires a definite morning devotion, we attend to that also. If not members of a religious body, we sometimes select to memorize a few set prayers which emphasize the principles we're discussing. There are many helpful books also. Suggestions about these may be obtained from one's priest, minister, or rabbi. Be quick to see where religious people are right. Make use of what they offer.
They came to me and they said, Charlie, pray only for knowledge of His will and the power to carry that out. I said, well, how in the hell is He going to know what I want? And they said, He's not interested in what you want. They said, He's interested in what you need. They said, Charlie, you've been trying to get what you want all your life. You've almost destroyed yourself in the process. That God knows what you need. And that's all you really need is what you need. And the only thing you really need is knowledge of God's will and the power to carry that out. And if you'll do that, everything will come out just right for you. And for me, that's happened over and over and over and over again. If I'd made a list in the very beginning of the things I wanted, and if I'd said, God, if you'll give me these, I'll never ask you for anything else. And if he had given me those things only, I would have shorted myself. Because he's given me not only those kind of things, but so much more than I ever dreamed would be possible, period. And all I need is knowledge of his will and the power to carry that out. And knowledge of his will is very simple. He's always told the human race, you only got to do two things to be happy. He said, put no other gods before me. Now that could be money, power, prestige, sex, or anything else. And then he said, do what you can for your fellow man, and you'll be happy. Well, that's what I try to do in my life today. I try to put God first, and I try to do what I can for my fellow man, especially alcoholics. And the end result is I've received much more than I ever thought I could. Bottom of page 87. As we go through the day, we pause when agitated or doubtful and ask for the right thought or action. We constantly remind ourselves we're no longer running the show. Humbly saying to ourselves many times each day, thy will be done. Now here's the results. We are then in much less danger of excitement, fear, anger, worry, self-pity, or foolish decisions. We become much more efficient. We do not tire so easily, for we're not burning up energy foolishly as we did when we're trying to arrange life to suit ourselves. And here's the shortest paragraph in the big book. It works. It really does. The paragraph is in entirety. We alcoholics are undisciplined. So we let God discipline us in a simple way we've just outlined. But this is not all. There's action and more action. Faith without works is dead. The next chapter is entirely devoted to step 12. And of course, we're not going to try to go through the next chapter working with others. It takes too long. But I will say one thing. It is just as valid today as it was in 1939. It tells us just exactly what we need to do in working with other alcoholics. It tells us how to 12-step. It tells us what we need to be talking about. Tells us how to take care of them as they're getting sober. Everything in that chapter is just as valid today as it was in 1939. Let's talk just a little bit about step 12. A multiple three-part step. First part, step 12, is the greatest promise to be found anywhere in the big book. Having had a spiritual awakening is the result of these steps. Not a result, not some result, but the result. I think that's a promise to me, that if I will apply the first 11 steps to the best of my ability, I'm guaranteed to have a spiritual awakening. Now, what is a spiritual awakening? Well, the appendix says it's a personality change sufficient to recover from alcoholism. Bill says in the 12 and 12, there's many kinds of spiritual awakenings. There are people in AA, but they've all got certain things in common. And that is that we're able to feel, believe, and do things we could never do before on our own strength unaided. And if that's the criteria, then I've had one. I feel things I've never felt before. I feel love, patience, tolerance, compassion, and goodwill. Before AA, I could have cared less about you. Oh yeah, you could have some, but only after I extracted what I wanted first. I always came first. I don't feel that way anymore. I believe things I've never believed before. I believe God is a kind and a loving God. I believe He stands ready to help any human being on earth. The instant they're ready to turn up on, to turn loose of self-will and turn back to Him. I believe He's a God of mercy, not a God of justice. Thank God He isn't a God of justice. If He was, I wouldn't be here today. Some of you guys wouldn't be here today either if He was a God of justice. Surely, surely. He's pure mercy and pure love. I believe that with all my heart. I can do things I never could do before. By golly, I can stay sober. I never could do that before. And because of that sobriety, I'm allowed to do many, many things that I always dreamed of being able to do, but never could do them. And I've been able to go places and see things and meet people and enjoy life that I never could before when I was drinking. So if that's the criteria, then I've had a spiritual awakening. But you don't get something for nothing.
Excuse me.
We are now charged with a responsibility. Those of us that have had the spiritual awakening, we're now charged with carrying this message to other alcoholics. Not a message, not the message, not some message, this message. What is this message? It's very simple. Having had a spiritual awakening, I'm not like I used to be. I've had a spiritual awakening. And if you're new in AA, and if you're not feeling good, if you're thinking about doing a little drinking, or if you've been out there doing a little drinking, we know just exactly where you're coming from. That's where we came from. We came to AA and picked up the big book Alcoholics Anonymous. We applied the first 11 steps in our lives to the best of our ability. We've had a spiritual awakening and we're not that way anymore. Now, if you don't want to be that way anymore, then you do what we did. You come to AA and pick up the big book Alcoholics Anonymous. Let us take you by the hand and walk with you as you apply the first 11 steps to your life. And you'll have a spiritual awakening. And you're not going to be that way anymore either. And that's the only message that AA's got. Some of us get to thinking we're healers. Some of us get to thinking we're marital and economic advisors. I don't know of any group of people in the world that screwed those things up worse than we did. We only know one thing, but we know it better than anybody in the world knows it. We know more about alcoholism than anybody alive. We're the only people that's ever experienced it. We know more about recovery from alcoholism than anybody alive. We're the only people that's ever done it. We are the experts, you and I, in the field of alcoholism. I have got to believe, as I look through our book and look through our history and the great history that Gail presented the other night, I've got to believe that God got tired of seeing people like us die back in the 1930s. I've got to believe that He took Bill and Bob, Dr. Jung, Dr. Silkworth, Abby Thatcher, and all the rest of them, and put this thing together so we could have it today. God's always worked with people through people. I'm convinced He picked all the first 100 so we could have this thing today. Now, if He picked the first 100 to do His job, and they're all dead now, every one of them, they're all gone. If He picked them then, would He still not be picking them today? There's not an alcoholic in this room that ought to be here. Every one of us ought to be dead. Some of us several times. And we used to say, my, wasn't we lucky last night? Now, I don't think luck's got anything to do with it. I think God picked you out. He let you suffer your alcoholism so you would know what He wants you to know. And when He got ready to use you, then He removed the obsession to drink. And now the only question is, what are we going to do with it? Are we going to carry this message to others? Are we going to be of unique value to our fellow man? You know, God has given us the knowledge and the opportunity to avert death in countless thousands and thousands and thousands of people. Most people don't get that opportunity. You know, I think we're the luckiest people in the world today. I've got to do one more thing now, and we're through. I have to try to practice these principles in all my affairs. And what are the principles? I've heard people argue for days over this. Principle of one's that, and the principle of two's this, and the principle of... No, I don't think that's true. In the 12th step, Bill had already used the word steps. Having had a spiritual experience or awakening as the result of these steps. He didn't want to use steps again. So then he said, and tried to practice these principles or these steps in all our affairs. In the 12 and 12, he says, the 12 steps are a set of principles, spiritual in nature. So I'm sure he's talking about the steps. Easy for me to practice them in AA. I love you and I hope you love me, and we're going to do our best not to hurt each other. But I'm only in AA an hour or two a day at the most. What do I do out there? Do I practice these principles in my home with my wife? Can I realize how powerless I really am over that lady? Can I realize the insanity of trying to control her, knowing full well I can't? Can I make a decision, turn her will and her life over to the care of God as I understand Him? Can I inventory me and find those character defects that keep me trying to control her? Can I talk about that to another human being? Can I ask God to remove those? Can I make amends to her quickly when I've harmed her? There's times I'm ashamed of me. There's times I treat absolute strangers on the street with more courtesy than I treat my own wife in my own home. Now just think, if I could practice there with her and she with me, we might pick up 10, 12, 14 hours a day. We can be peaceful, happy, and free. Can I do it with my children? If I can, what little time I've got left with them's good times. If I can't, I try to control and they resist. Hell, we got one daughter that's 51 years old, and I find myself still trying to tell her how to run her business. You know? Can I do it on the job with my coworkers? You know, I might be happy on the job 8, 10 hours a day if I can practice these principles there. Aren't we really saying God has given us the ability through our program to be peaceful, happy, and free 24 hours a day, 365 days a year? Make no mistake now, God's not going to do it for you. Other people aren't going to do it for you. But you, with God's help and the help of other people, can do it for yourself. I think we're the luckiest people on earth today. I really do. Let's go to page 164.
Let's go to page 164. I remember reading in that other big book this story about these guys that were practicing these principles and carrying this message. And they were in a little town called Cernan. And after the guy was talked that night, why, they told me of a fellow they had locked in a cave up on the side of the hill. And he said, I want to go up and see this guy. And they said, no, you don't want to see him. Man, he's a selfish, self-centered, angry, hateful individual. And we got him locked up. He said, no, I want to go see him. He said, tell me what his name is. He said, well, his name is Legions, for he is many. You know, many defects of character. He said, well, I'm going to go up there and talk to him. So he went up and talked to him a little bit, cut loose the chains of resentment and fear and guilt, shame, and remorse, and set him free. He wrote a little step for us right here. And the guy asked him, he said, can I go with you and do what you do? And he said, no, Legions. He said, I want you to stay here and tell people what happened to you. I think it's called Pass It On. On page 164, it says this. Our book is meant to be suggestive only. We realize we know only a little. God will constantly disclose more to you and us. Ask Him in your morning meditation what you can do each day for the man who's still sick. The answers will come if your own house is in order. But obviously you cannot transmit something that you haven't got. See to it that your relationship with Him is right, and great events will come to pass for you and countless others. This is a great fact for us. Abandon yourself to God as you understand God.
We did that in steps 1, 2, and 3.
Admit your faults to Him and your fellows.
We did that in 4, 5, 6, and 7.
Clear away the records of your past.
We did that in 8 and 9.
Give freely what you find and join us.
We'll do that through 10, 11, and 12.
And we shall be with you in the fellowship of the Spirit. And you will surely meet some of us as you trudge the road of happy destiny.
May God bless you and keep you until then. Thank you all for letting us be here. We love you. We love you.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good job.
Thank you.
Well, as most of you know, Joe and Charlie have now gone on to the big meeting in the sky. I do hope that I get to meet them one day on the other side. Not sure how all that works, but I hope Joe and Charlie are there and we get to have a conversation about how much they impacted my life. And I know not just my life, but so many other people. Now, remember, folks, we do not want you sharing your toothbrush, but we would love for you to pause your device, whatever you're listening to this on, and share that episode with a friend or family member. It may be just what they need today. Now, on to a little bit of listener feedback. Oh, and before I get started, just in case you're not following us on Instagram, you can find us at Sober Speak, and it's actually, I say us, so I monitor all the direct messages, but Miss Cassandra, she's wonderful at what she does. She posts 3 or 4 times a week on there. You'll want to see what she's posting. I think we have like 4,000 or so followers now, and I don't know what that's like in the Instagram universe. That could be a little, could be a lot, whatever the case may be. But you'll want to make sure that you get in there and following us on Instagram if you're not doing it yet. And if you want to find us Facebook, go to your Facebook application and look up Sober Speak Secret Group and ask for admission into the group, and we will get you on in there. The bar is very, very low. All right, now on to that feedback. Adrian writes in. Adrian! And Adrian says his title of his subject line is what it's called, right? The subject line is called Buddy C. And he says, hello, John. It's been a while since I wrote you, and today I'm in a mood. Smiley face. I think that means a good mood. But anyway, he said, sought through prayer and meditation is one of our daily program routines. And honestly, I kind of missed the meditation part, and I didn't pray too much during the day. Then life brought me through some emotional merry-go-round, and my emotional life came completely unmanageable. What a mess. I felt like I was drunk, and oh boy, what a disaster. I had to do something to create a routine in my life, and since then, some weeks I wake up very early and use Buddy C's meditation app. To make it short, John, please send him my gratitude, and somehow I finally could overcome the very bad period of time where I thought the world is against me. Finally, M8 had my 6th anniversary on October 3rd. Adrian, you've probably told me that before, but October 3rd is the anniversary of the death of my brother who died from alcoholism and drug addiction. But this, my friend, is a happy thing, right? So I'm glad that I am very glad you had your 6th AA anniversary on October 3rd. That's very cool. Adrian goes on, the AA tools, the program, the community, your podcast, and many other resources really helped me to get through this very strange time. I can relate, Adrian. I've had those myself. Send my very regards to Buddy C, and I wish you, brother, all the best. Adrian, P.S. M8. Okay. Well, I didn't know this. M8 apparently means mate. Well, thank you, mate. I appreciate it. And thank you for the cheat code. And as you know, I replied to your email and I copied the one and only Mr. Buddy C on that email. Theo writes in, and Theo says, hey, John, I was just listening to the newest episode. I'm laid up with a broken arm, and today I was making a list of what I'm grateful for in my life, being that Thanksgiving is tomorrow. Times have been tough. I'm surrounded by the temptations and I am in constant financial fear. I haven't had a paycheck since September, but I never miss an episode of Sober Speak, and so you are at the top of my gratitude list. Friday is my birthday. I'll be 49 and 2. 2 years sober, brother, and not one day of it have I been even close to using, even though it's going on around me at every turn. But I remind myself when I feel I'm the only person on earth, but I remind myself, especially when I feel like I'm the only person on the earth who is sober. I'm doing it for myself, and I'm delusional to think I'm the only one. God has opened my eyes to see it all for what it is, and God and I have better and bigger things to do. That's true, my friend. Anyway, 2 years Friday, I got my ass up and got to get my chip. Love you, brother. Bless you and your family. Theo Dallas S. Well, thank you, Theo, for writing in, and congratulations once again on your 49th birthday and your 2-year anniversary of being sober. That is absolutely fantastic. God bless you, my friend. Love back to you. And finally, Lisa writes in. And Lisa says, and Lisa's from Sweden. She says, "Hi, John, how are you? Condolences for the loss of your father." Thank you, Lisa. His birthday was tough, and this Thanksgiving is going to be the same way, I think. But anyway, she says, "I heard about your loss and appreciate the honesty and vulnerability in episode number 411 when both you and Casey talk about your family and loss. I really enjoy listening to all your episodes with Casey, and I would love to get in touch with him if possible. Thanks for bringing hope and courage to so many people. Prayer hands." And then she says, "Wishing you you and your family a really great Thanksgiving, Lisa in Sweden." So I still think about that movie. What's it called? Frozen? Is that where they are in Sweden on that? Where they got the little snowman guy running around? I haven't seen a lot of movies, but I had to see that one when my kids were young. And what are all their names? Oh, gosh. Orloff or something. What was the little snowman's name? I used to know this, but anyway. So sorry to digress. All right, everybody. That is another episode of, what do we call it? Sober Speak. In the book Sober On, everybody. And I do this 1 week at a time. I hope to be back next week. Until then, may God bless you and keep you until then. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Love you guys. Adios.